Choosing the right compound bow for you. Archery is a great sport because everyone can participate in it due to the personalized experience and setup of the bows. Some bows can even be set up to be shot with a person's teeth, shoulders, or feet. Personalizing a bow specifically for you can make all the difference in the world. Unlike with firearms, the archer is an integral part of the bow. Because of this, it is very important that you are shooting the right compound bow for you and that it is set up correctly for you. Below, you'll find some guidelines to choosing the right compound bow. In this article, I'm going to talk about compound bows. Although there are other types of bows like recurves and longbows, a compound bow has some special features that these other more traditional bows don't have. Eyes and right or left-handed. First off, you need to determine which eye is your dominant eye, and this leads into shooting a right or left-handed bow. If you are right eye dominant, you'll shoot a right-handed bow. If you're left eye dominant, you'll shoot a left-handed bow. It is possible to shoot a right-handed bow if you're left eye dominant and vice versa, but you'll be much more accurate and less frustrated if you make sure you shoot with your dominant eye. In order to find which eye is dominant, extend your arm and pick an object about 10 feet away to point at. Begin with both eyes open. Once you are pointing at the object, close one eye. Let's just say your left. If your finger is still pointing at the object you started with, then you are right eye dominant and will need a right-handed bow. Now, just to double check, open your left eye and close your right eye and see if you are still pointing at the same object. If you truly are right eye dominant, your finger should no longer be pointing at the same object. However, if you were no longer pointing at the object when you had your right eye open, then you are left eye dominant and will need a left-handed bow. Your brain will automatically choose the dominant eye. Draw length. If you read Boobs and Bows, you know how important draw length is and why you should be fitted to a draw length that suits you. You also know how to measure for it. However, I will do a quick overview here. To determine your draw length, stand with your arms outstretched to your sides. Have someone measure you from middle fingertip to middle fingertip. Divide that measurement by 2.5. You now have an estimate of your draw length. However, you should always have an expert watch you shoot to see if it is absolutely correct. Also, a release can add half to 1 inch to your draw length, depending on your anchor. So also take that into consideration when being measured, and again, always try it and adjust it until it feels perfect for you. Here's a diagram of measuring. Anchor point. Your anchor point is the point on your face where your draw hand rests when you are at full draw and ready to shoot. Where you choose to place your anchor point is up to you to a certain extent. However, certain releases will be held differently. Therefore, your anchor will change. Most archers anchor on or under their earlobe, but they also have 2 or 3 other anchor points they keep in mind, so it stays consistent. The main purpose of an anchor point is consistency. Without consistency, your shot will not be accurate and it will change from shot to shot. So be sure to pick 2 or 3 points to remember so you can always place your anchor point in the same place. Draw weight. Draw weight is very important, especially for beginners. It is the weight at which your bow is set when you go to full draw, drawing your bow all the way back to the stops. If your draw weight is too high, you'll struggle with each and every shot. It's important to start out with the maximum draw weight you can handle with ease. If you are struggling to draw your bow back, your draw weight needs to be decreased. This will lead to all sorts of issues and it won't allow you to work correctly on your form because you will be fighting to draw your bow back. The cool thing about compound bows is that they have this wonderful thing called let-off. Let-off is when you draw your bow back and at a certain point the weight decreases exponentially. Most modern bows have a let-off of 65 to 80%, which means if your bow is set for 50 pounds, you have to pull 50 pounds at first, but when you hit the let-off point, the weight is reduced to 10 to 30 pounds until you hit the stops. Let-off has great benefits. One being the archer is able to hold at full draw longer. Another is that the archer can usually pull more weight because of the let-off. One issue with draw weight is the fact that many states have a draw weight requirement for hunting. However, if you're not shooting bows to hunt, then you don't have to worry about this. If you are shooting bows to hunt, then you'll typically have to shoot around 40 pounds of draw weight in order to hunt certain animals like deer, bobcats, and smaller game. If you plan on hunting bigger game like moose, elk, and bear, you'll want to work up slightly to a higher draw weight. But don't worry about any of this until you have your form down. It's very important to start out with a lower draw weight in the beginning so you can focus more on form. With a higher draw weight, you'll be struggling to pull the bow back, and you'll also struggle to hold it at full draw. So it's smart to start out low and increase as your muscles, body, and brain get used to shooting. Draw weight also has a lot to do with arrow speed, flatter trajectory, more kinetic energy, and potentially greater penetration. However, it doesn't matter how much draw weight or speed you have if your form is not consistent and perfect. Your shots will suffer. Also, where you are shooting from has a lot to do with the draw weight you should be shooting. For example, it can be harder to pull a bow to full draw on a tree stand or a blind, so make sure you practice with your draw weight before you hunt. There are many other factors to consider. If you'd like to know more about them, set up a Zoom session with me sometime. The bottom line is, set your bow to a draw weight that is comfortable for you to shoot over and over again. The point is not just to be able to shoot once. While you may be able to pull 60 pounds once, pulling it over and over again is another story. Have your archery shop help you adjust your draw weight. They also have equipment to measure it. They can adjust by tightening or loosening limb bolts. One more important point on draw weight. Bows come in certain weights. For instance, you can get a Bowtech Rain that shoots 40 to 50 pounds, or you can get one that shoots 50 to 60 pounds. Make sure you choose the right bow for your draw weight. You don't want to buy a 70-pound bow if you can't shoot at least 55 to 60 pounds. And you wouldn't buy a 40 to 50-pound bow if you want your draw weight to be 70 pounds eventually. So choose accordingly. Brace height. Brace height is the distance between the bowstring and the grip, which is on the riser, when the bow is at rest. If you read Parts and Terms of a Compound Bow, you will find all the parts I mention here. Longer brace heights tend to be more forgiving than shorter ones, so if you mess up a shot, it's less noticeable. However, there are pros and cons to both a longer and shorter brace height. Typically, the shorter brace height, the faster the bow. If you are just beginning to shoot, a longer brace height might be your best option at first. Axle to axle length. As you hopefully read in Parts and Terms of a Compound Bow, the axle to axle length is the length from one cam to the other, or from one cam to the idler wheel on a single cam bow. These axles help power the bow, and they are attached to the bow's limb tips. The axle to axle measurement is important because it should fit the type of shooting or hunting you'll be doing. If you have an extremely long bow, it might be difficult to hunt with, especially if you are in tight quarters. You'll typically want a shorter bow in tight quarters like tree stands or ground blinds. However, if you are hunting open fields or shooting on open courses, a longer bow won't be as difficult to deal with. A longer bow can actually be beneficial because it can be more forgiving when taking longer shots. In closing, now that you know how to find the right bow for you, go have some fun. Don't forget to read up on Parts and Terms of a Compound Bow before you go to the archery shop. Impress everyone with your new language.